Welcome to Type Talks. Today we have the ESTP live Q&A with Taco. Would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Yes, yeah, my nickname is Baaf. That's what everybody calls me over here. It's dark at my side of the ocean. I live in the Netherlands. It's evening over here, so every time I talk to Joyce, it's dark at my side because typically to get some viewers, we don't do it early in the morning in America. And I'm ESTP 8-wing-7. What else? Race rower, fanatic race rower still. And at my job, I'm a marketing manager. If you look at my personality, I like to work with high performance teams, I like to build them myself and then perform with them. So you see that in rowing, you see that in the office, and even the family is like a well organized team. It's so that's um, about that. Let's see. Yeah, I love to tinker around with machines, petrolhead, and I'm also moderator in the personality typology for personal growth group. Megan Levota started that something like 4 years ago, and I think she was looking for a friendly ESTP bouncer, so that's why she invited me. And so that's it.
Yeah, and that's where we met too. We're both
True.
moderators to Megan Lavota's Facebook group. And so, Taco, would you like to tell us a bit about your dominant function, extroverted sensing, SE?
Yeah, it's amazing how many times I find the other descriptions shallow, because to me it's yeah, it's multifaceted, and it's really an exciting function. To me, SE allows me to be fully integrated with everything around me. It can be that I'm really present and connected with people. It can be that I feel that I'm one with my motorbike when I'm taking a curve, and there's just kind of connection because it's so much in the present. It's also just to do something with intensity. SE DOMs, they love high intensity experiences, but also the way we come across. I typically recognize someone with SE because it's almost punchy. SE, it's there's intensity behind it. It's not this say nice and calm water, but it's like the big waves. And to some people, it's intimidating or dominant. But if I talk to, for example, an ESFP, others might be irritated by the energy, but I like it, and it feels at home because I have it myself. So you don't notice it's a lot, but yeah, sometimes I need to tone it down. That's what I learned in my life. That to some others it can be way too intense. Yeah,
Mhm.
then also SE sees all the possibilities, and you can be in the top of a ski slope, and then you see all the possible paths, and probably because SE is so connected, and I always immediately know what path to take and take a decision, and so it's not expanding like SE, but we do see a lot of possibilities when we have technical problems we want to solve, and uh, with everything we just see basically the context, a lot of things, and then we zoom in. It's like an eagle or a drone. You go high over the mountains, everything, and then you see a mouse, and you zoom in and you see everything. You want to say something, Joyce?
Yeah, that's really well described. And so NE and SE are both about possibilities, and SE is more about opportunities. So it will see the opportunity, like the quick path that you could capitalize on. So it's really great at capturing and leveraging opportunities as they come to you. So you see, oh, sensory, there's a sensory possibility where I could head that way instead of that way. And that's one of the ways where you can parallel NE and SE because they're
I
both about.
think SE, because some people see it as opportunistic, but it's just we are so in the present that we just notice everything. And
Mhm.
if you notice everything, for example, if I'm walking at the pavement and there's a $10 bill, I see it, and then others see, oh, you see all you see the opportunities, but I just see everything and I also notice the bill. That's how I see SE. And I also want to add that SE is very action oriented. If people say SE DOMs are quickly bored, that's when we don't experience any action. So it doesn't mean that I don't get bored very quickly, because there's always action in my life. I always have things to do. I've tons of hobbies. I've very busy job. So there's enough stimulus. But I can remember that when I was at school, that I would die in class because it was just so boring, because there was no action. The teacher was telling something in the monotone voice, and not a subject I was interested in, and that's tough for ESTPs. Yeah.
Yeah. So Taco mentions the element of observational skills. And so SE has really good observational skills. And so it's really good at noticing people's tells sometimes, like if you're croaking your eyebrow a certain way, or if you're doing a certain tell, or if your socks are over your pants, like an SE Dom will see it. So someone who leads with SE as their first function.
Now, for example, at one moment, a colleague, she had a small spot in her neck. She said, "What happened?" And then she felt embarrassed. I don't know. She should not be embarrassed, but she wanted to curl her hair, and then with this hot tool, she just touched her neck, and things like that. It's just we notice a lot, and that's why ESFPs and ESTPs typically are also good in reading body language, because it's some people can control their face, but they cannot control their hands and their feet, and we pick up all those things. So for me, yeah, it's sometimes really easy to read people, and I do a lot of negotiation for my work, and I can see if they're comfortable or if they're really nervous, and that's very easy to spot. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also an element of impatience sometimes with SE DOMs too, because they do things fast or they have good reflexes, with some of them, not all of
We
them.
don't do things fast, but other people do things slow, and that's why we're impatient. The way to recognize an SE DOM is put them in a co-driver seat and then wait a half a second when the light turns green. They will have said, "Go, it's green." They don't have another color green already within few seconds. Because we see it and then we expect action. And if you then, yeah, not hitting the gas pedal, and yeah, we think, "Oh, you're sleeping. Come on, what are you waiting for?"
I'm curious, what is your driving style, Taco?
A driving style, like an 18-year-old boy in a fast car. That's my driving style, and I think it has to do with also this is. It was funny. You did recently a Q&A with an ISTP. And there was a question: how do I learn to take curves quickly and to brake well? And he gave an answer that driving fast will win you only a few seconds, mostly maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And that's a TI reason. An SE Dom would never give that answer, because I don't drive fast to be somewhere quicker, but I drive fast because it's more exciting. It fits basically my I would say almost need for stimulus. Otherwise, yeah, it's too boring. And if you the faster you drive, the more data you have to process, and the quicker you have to react. And just this kind of interplay between the body and the car or the motorbike, that's what energizes us. It's a high intensity. So yeah, if we drive fast, we feel at home. And if we have to keep the speed limit, then yeah, it's like you move in slow motion. That's not fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why there's a correlation between liking adrenaline rushes and extroverted sensing. And so there's this ability to adapt and improvise by being able to, you trust your ability to be flexible and to kind of react in the moment when the situation requires. And so there's that.
But
And
it's
so,
also that we practice and practice and practice. It's yeah. You look at my race rowing. Been race rowing for 30 years. I'm still perfecting my style. But the same is true for my driving. As a kid, I would go with my typically STP friends. We would go to a parking place and just drive donuts and all these kind of things, just to learn how to control the car. And if there was snow, we would just spin around the whole day, just to learn to make handbrake curves and all these kind of things. And if you do that for day after day after day, you become a good driver. It's not that ESTPs or ESFPs are good drivers by nature. No, they just have the talent for it to become good drivers.
yes. Absolutely. And so how do you experience your auxiliary function introverted thinking, TI?
It's like a framework. You start with building blocks and then you expand on it. And I watched the video about the Olympic champions rowing from New Zealand yesterday evening, and just to see if I can still learn something from them, and that's just I have a huge TI model now for race rowing. With it includes the technique, it includes everything about the boat, and it also includes things like how you act with a team, and food. What do you eat? Weight training. I've spent so many days on researching and trying out things about weight training. So it's like your model, how the world works, and your subjective model. I was always good in math, and then I also did mechanical engineering. I have a master's in mechanical engineering. So I think compared to some other ESTPs, my TI is well developed, because for those studies you need to use TI a lot, and that typically helped. My father was, I think, an ISTP. At that time I was not in person or in cognitive functions and things like that, but I think it was an ISTP. So both my brothers also have TI, and they're also engineers. So yeah, I am coming from a TI family, so there was a lot of TI in the house.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A common manifestation you'll see in ESTPs with their TI SE is that they'll like to apply their TI model to understand SE better. So it's almost like you want to understand the technicalities of something just right, so you can kind of take action on it in a way that's just right. Uh, this doesn't apply for all of them, but like sometimes you'll see it in them, taking apart things and then putting it back together to see how it works and figure it out to kind of problem
Yeah, to
solve.
me that's TI, taking things apart and to see how it works, because I see my NTP son doing the same sometimes. It's an SE to me is like a high capacity data processor. So you get in all this data, and then the TI is the filter. It throws away like 95% of the data, and it uses the the stuff which is interesting or which is useful to build this framework. And um, I heard an ESFP you were interviewing recently saying that he liked exploring, and I was thinking, hey, I like exploring as well. You are in another country, and what do I typically do if I'm somewhere in a new country? If typically I would rent a racing bike or take my own bike with me, and I just ride around, and that's basically the data mapping, the SE, and I can imagine ESFPs like that as well. And then what I do is I build a kind of mental map of the whole environment. So it can be 2 days later that my wife says, "Yeah, we need to do groceries," and I say, "Oh, there's a grocery and there's a grocery." And she says, "How do you know?" I say, "I know everything in the neighborhood. I've mapped it out." So that's a TI model, and that expands. The longer you stay somewhere, you will expand the model. So that's how you combine basically the SE and TI, and with tinkering around with engines. The first time I took apart my moped was just to find out how it worked, and TI takes apart and analyzes it, and then at the end you suddenly have this NI concept, how the engine, how all the parts of the engine work together, and then it clicks. So that's for us really in a late stage. The beginning is just exploring, and then the TI builds this model as an ESTP or an ISTP, and in the end, it clicks. So yeah, that's the
Uh-huh.
process.
Yeah, yeah. And there's an eloquence when you truly understand how something works. And so how do you experience your relief function or your tertiary function extroverted feeling, FE?
Yeah, I think now we're doing a lot of SEFE, and I always like that. I'm really a team player, and I think that's where you can differentiate me from a lot of ISTPs. They typically, for example, in rowing, the ISTPs would typically opt for the single, and they will say things like, "Then I can really do it myself and prove the world basically that I all did it myself." So that's typical an ISTP comment. Well, I like to perform with a team, and it's way more fun to celebrate the victory when you are in a team with 8 or 4 than if you are alone, to me. So that's why I prefer teams. And also in the office, I always worked in teams. And already many years ago, when I became a manager, I think it was 2003, they offered me an office, and I said, "Give to somebody else. I want to be able to work with the team." It's I've always been like a foreman. You know, if in the boat, I set the pace, the rhythm. I'm the stroke guy, but I pull my own weight. It's not that I'm at the side and shouting to the crew what they have to do, but I just pull my own weight. I see myself as part of the team, not above it. And even as a manager, I still see myself as just a team member. So that's one aspect of my FE. I also think, yeah, it helps to connect with others. It's I enjoy meeting new people and to learn more about them, and also the FE balances out the TI. You can imagine if you're a race rower, you just want the boat to be the fastest as possible. And it can be that your TI, as a kind of cold and rational decision machine, decides that one rower is not good enough and should be kicked out of the crew or replaced, let's say it in a friendly way. And friendly, that's an FE. But then the FE is this balancing force telling you, hey, this guy has been in a crew for many years. He is contributing member. He's giving everything he has, so you cannot just kick him out. And I like that balance. It's if I look in my head, my TI is a bit cold to me, and then it is analytical. It is typically right, but it's not always the best thing to do if you work with human beings. And in the office, it's the same. If somebody's not functioning in their job, TI might say, yeah, they should be fired. Well, FE says to me, there must be another place in this company where with the right fit. So let's see if we can give this person a better place. And so that's my relationship with FE.
Yeah. Tertiary FE is sometimes good at knowing how to say things to get a specific outcome too. It's like, this is how I could say it in a nicer way to actually get the point across. So it's a little bit of the finessing, being able to say things in a way that'll land well with other people. Yeah, and so Taco, how do you experience your repressed function, introverted intuition, and I
just want to first say yes, because TI is always thinking in the background and sometimes a bit slow, and then coming back to something where you're moving on. And it's funny because typically the INFJs in my life, they don't move on, they stay to the subject, and I want to move. That's the other way around. I just want to add that was sometimes, especially I think before I MBTI and cognitive functions entered my world, I thought it was really good in FE. At least I didn't know it was FE, but I thought it was really good as a manager and understanding people, until I learned cognitive functions. And now I realized that the NFJs are much better in FE than I am. So typically in the office, I want to have at least one NFJ in the team, just to be basically my advisor on people topics, and that's really cool. I really love to see how good they are in spotting what's going on within the team, with understanding how people feel, how things I do come across. They're not shy. They don't know they can give me feedback, and I will not see it as critical or be offended. So they can just say what they observe, and I'm thankful for that. So yeah, now I'm ready to move to NI, Joyce. Yeah, to me, yeah, I'm fascinated by NI, and the first time I read about it, it sounded extremely familiar to me, but it's still also distant and difficult for me to really do it. The extrovert sensing is so much in the foreground that it almost doesn't allow my NI to get on the floor. You know, it's sometimes I think an NI concept is coming to me out of the fog, and then I want to grab it by its horns, and it disappears again. That's how weak it is. And but I can have strong ideas, and what gives me some, I would say, confidence in my NI is that I've had an INFJ teammate as a rower when I was in the national team, and that guy was really good. And what we did most of the time was SE, and the rowing race is like 7 minutes of just SE, and there's not much NI. It's just very intense. And this guy had inferior SE, but he could do these races really well because we won so many races together. And that means that even if it's your inferior function, it can be really strong. The thing is that we could do training in the morning, and I would just go on like this Duracell bunny, with these batteries who never deplete. Well, the INFJ teammate had to take a nap or isolate himself just to distance himself and to recharge. And then also many times I would do another training while he would not train a second time. And that's where you see the difference. I can see the whole day, and he would have these kinds of sprints as he sprints and then get exhausted by it. And that gives me the confidence that even ESTPs and ESFPs can have moments of strong NI, and to me that's, for example, I was thinking when I was at high school, at one moment we did a test what we wanted to become, and then we had to do this test, and then basically to see what kind of jobs would maybe be for you, what kind of study. And I said, teacher, I'm not going to do the test. I already know I want to do mechanical engineering. And that's like an NI idea where you exclude all the NE possibilities. It's just, I knew already what I wanted to do. And that was based upon basically my passion for engines, mopeds, motorbikes, all these kind of things. And I was so interested to learn more how they worked and to be able to design it and things like that, that I already knew what I wanted to do. And I was good in math, good in physics, so I was confident that I could do it. So I didn't want to do the test. Good example of STP and I. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes
And it also, sorry to interrupt, but then I come with this next idea and want to send it out to the world. As I grew older, especially when I was in my 40s, my NI got a lot stronger. So while before that I never cared, for example, about the future, I suddenly got ideas what I wanted to do to prepare for my pension, financially. And I see that INTJs, they already invest when they're 30 and in things with like a 20, 30-year outlook. But for me, that came relatively late, but at least it's there now. And there are a lot of things now where I'm considering more the consequences of my actions, where I look for the deeper meaning of things. And it also allows me, and that's, I think, one of the things I'm most grateful for. My strong NI allows me to have deeper connections with others. I think young ESTPs, they are typically moving on so quickly that they almost don't take the time to deeply connect with someone. And I'm sure that many INFJs, when I was young, thought, I cannot even talk 10 minutes with this guy to find out who he really is, because he's already moving on to another subject or making fun of something or poking at me. So that's a big benefit, I think, of stronger NI. And I've seen it with other ESTPs as well, that as they grew older, that they were looking for a strong connection. Sometimes it resulted even in a divorce where they remarried with somebody where they had a deeper emotional connection with. Well, before that, they were married to somebody who was not interested in it, also because they were not interested in it themselves. And I reflected upon it, and I thought, I'm not going to do that. It's I have very close INFJ friends, both males and females, but uh, yeah, some of them even I allowed them, and that's not easy for Nightwing 7 to touch my soul, but um, I don't want to destroy basically the relationship with my wife. So that's something I where all these knowledge about cognitive functions can help you because you understand the world and you know what to expect from others and what their strengths are and what you should not expect from them. So I
Yeah.
prefer to look at strengths.
Yeah, an underplayed quality of the SENI axis is trends and seeing trends around you. Like with SE dominant types, they'll see everyone's like wearing a red hat or a blue hat suddenly, and you're like, huh, I'm seeing a lot of that. Well, and then the NI, the introverted intuition, will go like, why is that happening? Why is everyone wearing blue hats around me? And another way introverted intuition shows up in ESTPs is short-term pattern recognition. So it's like when you're going down a hill, it's like noticing you have this path, this path, this path, this path. Like, what is the most likely path to take the option that will give you the
Exactly.
outcome that you want?
Yeah.
So is that
Yeah.
like quick ability to pattern recognize right on the spot in a tangible way and then choose a path of action. So it's like, if I'm going to punch someone, I'm going to punch them this way so that when their hand lands that way, then I'll make sure that I get the hit there.
And
That's
then I also is perfectionistic. So I think because you cannot disconnect SE from NI and or the other way around.
yeah.
And when they say SE users are always appreciating aesthetics, I think we like all these bright colors or shapes, beautiful shapes, things like that. But they 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 also have to be perfect because of our inferior NI. And that's why we appreciate aesthetics. If I look at my racing bike, it's like a team, it's a red and black team. And I looked everywhere sometimes to find parts which fitted the team. And the same for my motorbike. And I see it with other ESPs with their clothes. And it's, yeah, the, the NI wants it to be perfect. And in ISTPs, you see it the way the tools they have, how perfect their machines are running. That's their NI expressing basically in the perfect running machine, and that it's fun to see. And I've an INTJ friend who is restorating old bikes, and he wants to make them like new. So that's also that's perfectionism to the finest.
That's really cool. Yeah. And so Nice asks, hello, Joyce and Taco. Thank you for this live. What's something you find interesting about each other from being in the same quadra, albeit the opposite configuration from each other?
That's a cool question. I have to say, I really appreciate the INFJs in my life. And for example, I connected to a recruiter we used to have. And when we were together interviewing new talent, it was just fun because he intuitively that would ask questions and I had a bit more, say, structured approach. But together we made a very strong team and we came to the same conclusions. And uh, that's also why I mentioned earlier that my FE coaches are NFJs because we speak the same language. The SFJs also have FE, but they value different things than I do, and they speak a bit different language. So that it can be that it doesn't resonate with me. While if an NFJ, an ENFJ, or an INFJ explains something to me about a relationship or how somebody is feeling, then I immediately get them. With sometimes they almost don't have to use words. You just are at this kind of similar wavelength. So that's yeah, and they have the functions I want to be better in FE and I. So that's it's cool. I like to be with INFJs, the ones in my life. I sometimes read at internet stories about how terrible INFJs can be, but that's not my experience. I really like the ones in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
How's it for you, Joyce? How are you doing with the ESTPs?
ESTPs are nice. My brother's an ESTP, so maybe I'll give some examples for audience comprehension. It's really nice. They're like impulsive, cooler versions of INFJs. They really kind of like to really enjoy what life has to offer, really experiencing life. So examples for audience is my brother loves driving cars and he loves driving them fast. And so late at night when everyone's off the road, he'll try to go like as fast as he can on his car because he can. And like when he sees a circular track, he'll purposefully go on it and just go in circles and circles.
Yeah, I could do that as well.
And it's
Until you reach a limit that you just have like 3 tires still having grip and you feel 1 tire is losing grip, and then you know this is the limit. You can't push it further. We like also to push it really. Yeah.
And it's terrifying sometimes if you're in the driver's seat. I mean, you're in the passenger seat.
The thing is, the INFJ rower I mentioned, yeah, we went to many races and I had the car and I was driving like I always do. And he said to me that he was never scared or terrified. He said it looks so controlled despite what you're doing because you drive like a maniac, but it looks so controlled as if it's a walk in the park for you. So he was never afraid next to me.
Yeah. It depends on the ESTP. So there are some who like I trust and I'm like, you're great, even no matter how fast you're going. I know you're in control because I have faith in your abilities. Sometimes I have some ESTP friends who purposefully scare you just because it's pretty funny sometimes.
To get your reaction.
Yeah, now that's when it's scary. But typically you trust them because, SE DOMs, they have good kind of observational skills. So I trust in their ability to drive too.
Now, if they're young, they might not know where the limits are. And since they try to go to the limit, they might cross them sometimes. And then, if you're then sitting next to them, it's not fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you have a fun time with ESTPs. They're always getting a rise out of people or kind of like testing physical limits and boundaries or figuring out how something works. Like, yeah, it's really, really cool. And so what do you think about ESTP stereotypes? What do you personally not relate to?
I think stereotypes are there for a reason, and I don't feel offended if you write nasty stuff about it. I can typically place it. For example, some find us too dominant or too alpha or too intense, but that's typically when you have low SE, so I can place it. I understand. And, it's FI DOMs are maybe too intense FI to me. So if you look at it that way, then it's not strange that you see these kind of comments. Um, I'm not so good in this kind of questions because it doesn't keep me really busy. So what do I relate to? I have to say, the first time I did a test was at the 16 personality site, and I think that's the big five. It's not really based on cognitive functions or Myers-Briggs, but it gave ESTP, and when I looked at the description, a lot of it resonated to me. So if that description is stereotype ESTP, then I think it's I relate to a lot of the topics. It said, for example, that typically ESTPs don't feel well in strict and regulated environments, and that's true. You don't put me into a meeting where somebody's just talking out of their ass and I have to sit there all the time, or don't put me in a classroom as a kid. That's just where the teacher's just having a kind of monologue in front of the whiteboard. That's not for ESTPs. And I understand a lot of the things in the description, and they fitted me well. So yeah.
Really cool. And what about like the stereotypes of I don't know. There's a lot of jock stereotypes of ESTPs. Do you relate to that? Not relate to
Can
that.
you explain the meaning of jokester?
So, in high school, there are some groups, and then there's the groups of people who love sports, but they're like a little bit of a meathead. So, there's a stereotype of ESTPs being of that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think the stereotype is a kind of guy who gets all the nice ladies in the classroom and who looks really cool. And I have to say that I was completely into mopeds and motorbikes, so I was not
Mhm.
really interested in the girls. And also even with sports, I was skipping the gymnastics lessons at school because I was too busy with either making money or with driving a moped. So it was only when I went to university that by accident I got myself into a rowing boat. That's maybe a nice anecdote to explain how I operate. We had a kind of weekend camp for the fraternity with like 300 first year freshmen, all wanting to become member of that fraternity. And there were some camp leaders who were humiliating us all the time. That's how it typically goes at fraternities. One moment I got fed up with one of these camp leaders and grabbed him basically by his jacket and pushed him in the mud. And then I tried to blend into this big group of freshmen so they could not get me, but they recognized me. And I thought, okay, this will be another night without any sleep, and they will make my life really difficult. And then a small guy shouted in my face, "Hey, I like you. You're a warrior. You have to go in the freshman's aid to defend our university against another university." So that's how I landed in a rowing boat. And, I liked it, and as from that moment, I've been a rower. So it was not really a conscious decision. It was a bit, yeah, it, the circumstances. And but after a few years, I was in a national team. So I think ESTPs have the right mindset and typically
Mhm.
the right control over the body to become good athletes. And that's why
Mhm.
the stereotype is there. So if they're exposed to sports, they typically we need to experience things before we know we like it. And I didn't know any sport I liked. I tried several sports. Field hockey, didn't like it. Tennis, didn't like it. So that's why I didn't do any sports. And then rowing I liked. And then yeah, you become this STP master in your skill. You every day you're just practicing, and your NI wants to perfect your technique, and your TI figures out what you need to improve to become better. So I think we have talents to become good athletes.
Mhm. Yeah, there's this trial and error element to extroverted sensing. And
Yeah.
so, which personality types have you experienced unexpected chemistry with in romantic, friendship, work partnership sense?
Um, I think when I was young, I was attracted to ISFJs, ISTJs. So that's a bit in line with some theories. I also married an ISTJ, and we're married now already for 22 years. So I can see why it works. Um, I think, yeah, the thing is, I never experienced it, and as an ESTP, you always need to experience before you have an opinion. But I really like the INFJs in my life. Really, the depth basically of the discussions. So that's very different compared to an ISTJ ESTP relationship. But I think the young ESTPs are not ready for it. So that's why they typically don't. Yeah, they almost get distracted by each other because young INFJs are also not ready for ESTPs. And to give an example, and then an INFJ is not action oriented, and ESTP might get really disturbed by it because it's like they want something but don't do anything. And if you're young, you think, come on, just do it, and don't complain. But it's related to energy and also to being an SE inferior. So and they become better in it as they get older, and we become better in our tertiary and inferior functions as we get older. So basically, we grow together. Well, I think if you have an ISTJ ESTP relationship, you don't grow together. It's you just continue to swim at the surface, and you're not going to dive deep later on. At least that's not in my relationship. But it adds a lot of other things, which they work. Otherwise, I would not have been married for 22 years. So they bring a lot of other things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Opposites attract, they always say. And yeah, I think my wife and I couldn't be more opposite of each other. So yeah, that's true. It's so difficult to find things in common. And even sometimes if we talk, it's almost like we don't understand each other. And that has to do with the opposite functions. So yeah.
Yeah, there's something to the ISTJ and ESTP bond you both have there. And so, how did you get into typology? What aspects personally interest you about it and make you want to keep learning more?
Yeah, as I said, I did this test at 16 personalities. I think was a co-worker, or I don't even remember. It was many years ago. But as an STP, I wanted to understand why the test gave this outcome, and also I played a lot with the query by changing basically the inputs to see if I would get then a different thing, if I would change things, just to understand how the test worked. And every time I see a test, I don't take the test multiple times, but I try to find out how the algorithm works behind it. So that's basically my TI, trying to find out how it works. And to learn that how it works, you at one moment you learn about cognitive functions, and you just go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole, because as an SE DOM, I can take in information the whole day. It's really like a huge data processor which never gets exhausted. So even when I'm doing things, or sitting at a rowing machine, or driving a car, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm watching YouTube videos, or listening to YouTube videos if I'm driving. It's a bit risky if you watch a video, but I'm just taking in information the whole day, and it's not just music or fun stuff. It's typically to learn something, because I'm interested in the topic and want to learn more about it. And that's basically how then my TI framework about cognitive functions and personality expanded over the years.
Really, really, really cool. And so, what did you think about typology before you got into it? What about now?
I was not thinking a lot about it. It's, yeah. And now I think it's I always had a talent in finding talent, finding good people. Already as a young a member at the rowing club as a student, I was at the gate when the freshmen came in, the candidates came into the first years, and to make the selection. And for me, yeah, with my SE, I would basically scan their body to see if they had the right posture and the right muscles and everything, and biomechanics to become a rower. But I also tested them mentally to see what was in their head, if I believed they could become a good athlete or not. And it has always been a passion of me in my job to interview new talent, to spot new talent, and to coach them to become better. And um, for me, it came quite natural to see good fits between people and jobs. And a lot of people who I recommended to do a job while they were not so interested in the job or thought it was not for them, and then they found out it was really a good match, and they thanked me for it. And
Mhm.
to me now, all this personality stuff is like you have additional tools in your toolbox. Now I understand why with a lot of things. For example, pricing coordinator, 70% of the candidates are ISTJs, and I understand why they are attracted to that role and why they're typically good in it. It's they don't mind to do similar tasks almost every day. They are very accurate. They can calculate really well. So if you look at the whole combination of the personality, it makes sense. Well, an ESTP would be quickly bored, and a lot of others would be not accurate enough. So it makes sense. And it's also that almost all the traders I've worked with were TPs, they're TI, and that yeah, a lot of ESTPs, ISTPs, and ENTPs. And that's not only in the company I work in, but also in other trading roles, people I meet, and that's why I I like this environment. I feel at home because you meet a lot of people you connect with. It's very easy. The STP bonds typically are quite good. So I apply it basically. I think ESTPs are practical, so they're not into the theory. They want to see a practical use of it, and otherwise they're not so interested usually. So
Yeah. Taco also mentions the element of getting a quick read of people or getting a quick read of a situation or a quick scan. And extroverted sensing is very good at that, just getting like the gist of the situation very quickly, very immediately, using its body as an instrument to read a scenario. And so, what did you think about when you wake up in the morning?
first, if I tend to wake up really early, and I don't need an alarm clock to wake up early. I have a lot of energy, and I sleep really deep, but not many hours. And if I wake up, it's like the main switch goes on, and then all systems are fully operational. It's impossible to snooze or to go back to sleep for me. It's like a big switch. I'm on, and then everything is running. And so you don't have to pour coffee in it to get it going. It's just almost as if I was a standby and suddenly bang, I can go. What do I think? I don't think that much. If my wife wakes up and then she goes to the tea list, what has to be done that day, and she will ask me questions, and I know that she's going to this list. But I just go down, enjoy my breakfast, and I watch CNBC to get the latest financial market info. And it's no, I don't think that much when I wake up. It's sometimes there's already kind of plan. For example, if I see that the next day there will not be a lot of wind and current, and I don't have an early meeting in the morning, I might decide to go early to the boathouse to have a row in a single. And so if I wake up, then I just know that I don't have that much time, so I will quickly have my breakfast and go to the boathouse. Yeah, that's, there's not much thinking. It's on my way to the boathouse, I will listen to my first YouTube video or something. Yeah.
They're very amazing. And so Gilbert says, "Hi Taco, is your attention easily diverted due to dominant SE, or do you lose yourself in the oneness of an experience, thus narrowing your focus on the task at hand?" And hi Joyce. Hi.
That's a really good question, Gilbert. If I'm in a rowing boat, it's just I'm so focused. It's just I concentrate on the rowing. It clears my mind, and I'm just honing my technique, trying to become better. I'm feeling the crew, feeling the boat, the flow, everything. So it's just I'm in the moment, completely say immersed in what's going on, and there's nothing else. But if I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm picking up a lot of things which might lead to jumping to another topic or whatever. It's different than NE. It's really that it brings me a different idea, and at the same time, my TI is spinning in the background, and we noticed that earlier in this interview, in this Q&A, that I sometimes come back to topics because my TI was still chewing on it, and then came with an answer, and I want to finish that answer then. So I hope this answers your question. Yeah.
Yes. Are they opinionated and argumentative like other TI users, ESTPs?
I have always very strong opinions, and also where FI users are very strong, say, moral values. I think most TI users or STPs, let's say that SETI users, have strong principles. And I don't like to divert from these principles. And there can be a big overlap with moral values, because some of these principles are based upon the FI values I got from my ESFP mom or my ISTJ wife. But yeah, and I'm argumentative if I think the point is not coming across, because I'm not just going with somebody else's idea. My TI has to make sense out of it. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm argumentative, and otherwise, with other STPs, it might look like a war, because you can imagine my father and ISTP, my youngest brother ISTP, and me, and then we could have these TI discussions about how the world worked, and that could be like a war zone to my ISFJ brother. His FE didn't like it at all, but for us was just a robust TI discussion. So it's also pending who is basically observing us, because a TI, an STP would not find it really argumentative, might find it an interesting discussion, while the SE to low SE users like an ISFJ can be intimidating or too intense. So you have to see where, you have to filter it for what kind of people are listening in.
Yeah, yeah. With some ESTPs or like TPs, they'll sometimes say something that's just a benign observation, but it'll actually might come across as offensive to the other person sometimes. So sometimes like TI, it likes to say the honest truth, and sometimes it doesn't realize like how straightforward it's being sometimes.
What a lot of TE users don't realize,
Yeah.
TI users, they don't just have this kind of balloon which pops out of their mouth. Their TI IDs are maybe the fruits of years of thinking. And if you come to me and I explain something about rowing and you tell me it's wrong, you get the argumentative side of me, because I've been building on this concept for like 30 years and refined it, won more than 170 races, sometimes with 50 competing crews, sometimes in national championships. So it's not that I'm talking out of my ass. And if somebody then um, just out of the blue says it's wrong, that's to me the wrong approach. That's how you insult typically in STP, or insult. We typically are not that insult, but how you trigger us, and because it's like you don't respect basically all the work we've put into the ID. Well, another TI user might have a different concept of rowing and might challenge me, and then we have a robust discussion. He will not say I'm wrong, but he will try out to find out why I say this, and he will voice his own ideas, and we have a discussion, and then one of us might conclude that we have to refine our ideas, and there's an element which can be improved. But that's how we believe that the discussion should go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what do SE users think of SI users? This is an interesting question because
Very interesting, and especially because
very.
I'm married to an SI dom. So, and my brother is an SI dom, and my father-in-law is an SI dom. So, a lot of us, and I have to say, half of the people in my office have relatively strong SI. It's just amazing how many SJs there are in the corporate environment I work in. I really respect them for what they do. They're good in their stuff, but they're very different. To me, SI users find it difficult to enjoy the present moment. If you have an SE dom, they can really indulge in a moment, and they can talk passionately about it because they so much enjoy the present, the experience. Well, the SI user has to take a picture or has to create this mental memory image of it to enjoy it typically later, and or when they do it for the second time, to enjoy it because it brings up the good memories of the first time. So that's one aspect of SI. Another thing is, we had a senior manager who remembered all the names of the people in the company he met even after a year. That's also an ISTJ and impressive, and he got a lot of credits for that, because it's like a personal touch, but it's basically very good memory skills. I always say SI is like a hard drive, while SE is like RAM, because I have a very good. I can recall experiences. I can recall conversation. Probably I can just rewind this whole interview after we finished, but my TI will filter out specific moments, and then it will go in the trash bin. The rest, well, and as I am Dom, they remember almost everything. If I want to know when we changed the coffee machine in the office, I wouldn't know myself if it was like 2 years ago, 5 years ago. But the ISTJ next to me can probably tell you even what day it was, if it was a Tuesday, and all these kind of small details. It's
They'll
yeah,
tell you about the brand of the coffee maker and
yeah,
its like
everything.
size. It's like a
It's just
2x4 coffee maker.
yeah, yeah. It's now, yeah, I have respect for SI users, and I've hired a lot of SI users in the past to work in the team. I think they're very complementary to SE users. So you need both.
Yeah. Another way to sometimes tell apart SC and SI is when you're leaving the house, the SI user will have a kind of like checklist, like especially with TE, with extroverted thinking too. It's kind of like we need this and we need this and we need this. Because from my past experience, I realized that when we go out, we need these items. So SI will be a little bit more thinking about things and preparing for things to bring out before going out. Whereas like SE users might do that up to an extent, but they're also just like, let's just go out, and they're not going to have that like sequential, I need this and this and this and this before we do this. SE is just going to be more likely to just kind of jump into the situation and go like, yeah, we're going to go to this area. I might bring a few things, but it's not as specific as SI would be with specific things.
They're experience based for sure, and that's also what I see in the office. As soon as we have a new situation, the SJs get nervous because they don't have experience with the situation. Well, I get excited because there's something, yeah, we can learn, and it's definitely not boring. There are many other things like SI users are always looking for balance, and so they complain when temperatures 1 degree too low or too high, and they're very much in touch with the body, so they know when they're thirsty, they know when they need food. They also take care of what kind of food typically. Well, SE uh, is pushing always. So an SE, I could ride my racing bike in the heat wave at the middle of the day because that time worked best. TI reason, and I didn't care about the heat. It's also a bit 8-wing-7 maybe, but not accepting any weakness or complaints. But that my wife found it completely irrational and stupid because I could get the heat stroke, and it was just not healthy and all these kind of things. And you, also, yeah, we like to push our bodies. We like to push the car, and as I just wants balance and what doesn't want to push,
Yeah.
and that's where we clashed a lot in the beginning. It's yeah, that why are you stopping when we're biking, and yeah, to have a drink. You can have a drink when you're biking. That's why they have these water bottle holders.
Yeah.
So you see the SE as I say. Yeah, in this case
Mhm.
it was a bit of a conflict, but the differences, yeah,
Yeah, SI wants that homeostasis.
yeah,
One of the symptoms of SI that someone could possibly be SI is when they tell you stuff like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be playing that music in July. That's like more of a January song," because
it's
they're
like the traditional,
yeah,
yeah,
they're comparing and contrasting it
yeah.
to a past experience, and
Yeah.
so it's pretty interesting. How do STPs remain so enthusiastic regardless of what one can go through? Share your wisdom with us, smiley face.
Really good question, because so many people say to me that they just don't understand. It's like they can beat me 100 times and I'm still smiling, and it's very true. In my case, I think it's also my 7 wing. I noticed my mom is a 7 wing 8, and she was always looking at the positive side. So that's definitely a 7. And I have a lot of these traits because everything can explode and it can be very messy, and I will still see the bright thing, and focus on the positive. And also with people, they can have negative traits. I will look at their strengths and their positive side. So um, why with ESTPs? I think also if you are so much in the present as an SE dom, you don't you're not really pulled down by the past. You don't dwell on the past, and you're not that much worried about the future. We in the here and now, and yeah, okay. It might really be a bad time now, but okay, we move on, and as he never gives up either, so we don't allow us to be beaten down. We always stand up on our feet. So a kid learning how to ride the bike, that's for me the typical SE dom example. It's we're not afraid to fail. We not crying when we fall. We step on the bike again and try until we master it. And that's SE dom.
Yeah.
And the same is true to many aspects in life. It's not only when we want to learn a skill. It's with a lot of things. Yeah, in general, a lot of SE DOMs in my life have positive attitude. So I like the question. It's true if you ask me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess when you're in the present so much, it makes you not worry about maybe like depressing things in the past or anxious things in the future. You're more in the present.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're less likely to feel those sad emotions if you lead with SE as the first function. It gets a little more complicated as you go
And
down.
almost all the ESTPs in my life are not quickly afraid. That's also the ISTPs. Well, that's FI users, so SFPs, they can have really a lot of fear. At least that's my experience with it. SFPs or be really anxious about things. But the STPs, it's maybe the cold TI. They take life as it is, and they're not that much scared or worried about it. It's also typically an ESTP. When you ask them, "What do you think about that?" They say, "Oh, if it comes, it comes." But they don't think about it. They're not worried about it, and they accept it when it arrives. But yeah, it doesn't keep us busy. It doesn't make us afraid, and that's also why you see so many STPs. I think in special forces, they have the skills to learn it, and they're not that afraid. So you can drop them behind the enemy lines, and they will find their way. It's
Yeah. ESTPs are good during crisis situations for that reason. Yeah. And that's a good point about risk taking, Taco. Yeah. Being an ESTP and understanding the essence of opportunity better than most, what has helped you rein in your excitement, energy, and has made you more patient through the years?
yeah. The thing is with as an ESTP, you as I said earlier, I think the opportunity is not just SE. Usually, it's my TI figuring out basically something. It can even be a combination of TI and NI. I like to, for the last years, I've been also studying macro trends in the economy, and then sometimes I have these trading ideas. That's basically a lot of TI, and then my SE wants to act on it immediately. Well, if I look at ISTPs who have stronger NI, they're better in basically pacing down and waiting for the right opportunity. So I might enter trades in big size and then regret it later because I lose a ton of money. And that's because my SE just takes action almost on the spot the moment I have this TI ID. And I learned over the years that typically STPs see things sometimes years in advance. It's like you see this train going to this collapsed bridge and you watch it in slow motion over the years. And I have that at the moment, for example, with fiat currencies. As all the central banks over the last years have been printing money, at one moment this whole system will basically explode. And I'm convinced about it. And uh, those trades, I think, will go really well. But for example, I thought I still believe, for example, a company like Tesla is overvalued at least 10 times. But when I entered basically trades to capitalize on that idea, I lost all the money. So that's a good example of where I was too impatient, too quick. So I think for it's good advice for every ESTP to take more time to think about the consequences if they're wrong. Those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. ESTPs can take very large risks. Like with my brother in cryptocurrency. He really likes to he sees a really possibly successful endeavor, and then he'll just go all in with it.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
ESTP. Yeah.
yep.
Also a lot of entrepreneurs, and then I have some friends who really made it because they took a lot of risk. We're borrowing a lot of money from the bank or family to start their own business, and in hindsight, a lot of them could have gone bankrupt, but yeah, they managed. And typically ESTPs, yeah, I lost a lot of money with trades in the past, but I always got back on my feet and learned from it. I think that's also the better quadra way. You learn from your mistakes. You don't blame yourself. You don't blame others. You take accountability and you learn from it. And that's how you become better. It's don't see it also as failure. I see it as a learning. And that's how we understand basically the essence of opportunity. We see opportunities, that's for sure. That's some SETI and also NI, a lot of very successful long-term investors are INTJ. So NI also helps a lot. That they see these macro trends years in advance, and then they position themselves accordingly, and they reap the fruits later on. So.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And so, what keeps you attracted to typology, and what keeps you hooked on it? I know we answered this earlier, but I'm like, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that the one side is the practical application. I just use it every day in my relationships with other people in conversations. But there is also kind of playful element. If I meet a new person, your TI wants to categorize. So you immediately have this kind of, typically I have a hunch, and I think, oh, this might be an ESFP. And then your SE probes, you ask questions to see what the reactions are and to test your TI idea. Then yeah, in some cases my first impression might be wrong, and then you basically you continue until you think you've typed somebody right. And typically I find myself typically quick, but there also have been times where it took me a long time to type somebody in my life, and that element also I think keeps me hooked. But also, yeah, it's just fascinating to see the interplay of the cognitive functions within the different personality types. It's such a big world that you never stop learning. So that also, yeah, so far kept me deep into it, and I don't think I will quickly lose interest because there's so many facets that I think I will always find a part of personality type really interesting.
Makes sense. And so, do you find you naturally get along with other SE types, other ESTPs, ISTPs, ESFPs, and ISFPs?
Good question. ISFPs, no. Must be my FI blind spot, but they just rub me with their comments, and so that doesn't go well. If you look at close friends, some friends I already know from primary school, I think the STP bonds are really strong. So most of my close friends are ISTPs or ESTPs, and the ISTPs are masters in their trade or in their skill, and that's why I massively respect them. But also with the STP friends, I feel they always have my back. It you can arrive in any situation, they will not let you down, and I can fully trust them. And that's what I like about the STP bonds I have with my STP friends. Then I have some close NFJ friends, some males, some females. That those that is more to say the emotional connection I have with them, which I really appreciate. It's I can talk for hours with them and not get bored. Well, I don't think I could have done that 20 years ago, but now I enjoy going down the rabbit hole with an NFJ. It's fun. Then as I learned about cognitive functions, and this is quite interesting, at least I find it fascinating. I now also have a very good ENTJ friend. And 100% sure that before I learned about typology, we would have clashed because of his TE. But since I understand it now and can value it for what it is, it doesn't rub me. I can just place it, and I'm just impressed by how well he's doing it. And this is stereotype CEO, ENTJ millionaire. You know, the richest friend I have. It's just amazing. But you just see how well they're set up with their cognitive function to excel in the corporate life. It's just it's so logical. The stereotype that it fits him well, and so that's quite interesting. And so the one part is that his TE is not rubbing me, but I also know how to to change my own behavior, not to irritate him. So that's a kind of like I'm not talking my native language now. I adapt to this crowd. So I don't think it has to do anything with being inauthentic. It's just that you adapt to somebody else. And I speak his ENTJ language a bit better now. So then, not the next question yet. I'm
sorry.
still thinking. So, in sports, I can get along well with the ESFPs. I have some ESFP rowers I can row really well with, but not as close friends. So it's really most of it is beta quadra basically, and yeah. So we speak the same language. We also the ESTPs and ISTPs in my life. They have so many similar interests. You know that it's just funny that I met it a few years ago an ESTP and he's a friend now. But we discovered we had, for example, both a Honda four-stroke moped when we were kids. You know, and it were many things like that. Also, the motorbike, we had similar things. So you see that you have similar interests as a specific personality type, and that's also funny how these kind of correlations work in real life.
That is true. Yeah. And so, outside of sports, engineering, goal-oriented pursuits, how would you choose between a multitude of SE possibilities when there is no clear winning path to take?
Yeah. First, goal-oriented sounds so to to me. I just do things because at one moment, I become good in it. And when I started rowing, my goal was never to become national champion or to row to world championships, but because it became better every day, I ended up there. And compared to ENTJs, it's like I don't have a compass to guide me. I just climb a mountain if it crosses my path, and well, they already decide. They have a bucket list of mountains they want to climb. You know, that's that's one thing about the question. Let's look at the question itself. When there's no winning path to take, I think my TI typically will conclude that if something is not a winning path or that is not a constructive path for the future, that you better stop doing it and do something else. That's very different compared to ISTJs. I noticed because for my wife, it's really difficult to stop at something if it's not really working well. To me, or if it's not really a winning path, you know, she can be in a career for a long time without enjoying it. Well, yeah, I'm not sure if I understood the question really well. Maybe you can help, Joyce.
Yeah, there is a switchiness. So if the path isn't working, sometimes I see SE dominant types, they'll switch the path that's not working. For instance, like with my ESTP brother, when he goes to a restaurant, he's like, this is like the best sushi restaurant. And after like he has a bad meal there, he's like, you know what? That restaurant's not that good anymore. I'm going to pivot to another restaurant. So SE might look for another opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, that really has to do that because we're so in the moment. That if in the moment is not good, it's not good. We forget the past. So also if somebody else gives us a really bad experience in the moment, we might forget the good past we had together and just get into really big arguments and or walk away. It's but there's one aspect we don't. If something doesn't work, it doesn't mean that we quickly give up, because I think as EDOMs they're one of the last to give up, and also some other types blame us for being so stubborn and trying the same thing 100 times. Well, already didn't work the first time. So we do persist, and I think the typical gold miner, who is digging and digging because he believes there's gold, and he will not give up after digging and digging and spending money on equipment and spending time just until he finds gold. That's typically an SEDOM. That we are not quickly discouraged by, say, what others see as failure or not success. But as soon as we don't have basically the "and I believe" anymore that we can be successful, then we stop.
Makes sense. What are you currently looking forward to?
That's a bit of an FI question. I was excited to do this Q&A. So yeah, there are things I look forward to. Yes,
Yeah.
and I've a race tomorrow, first time in 2 years, a race in the 8, and that's something I'm looking forward to. So.
Heck yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taco's looking forward to connecting with you guys. His FE
Yeah,
enjoys
it's the
it.
interaction, the questions. It's yeah, I like it.
How does SE manifest in its gathering aspect?
Yeah, as I said, it's to me, SE is like this massive data processor which never gets exhausted. So the it can be for data, but it can also be for stuff. I know ESTPs who have so many cars that they needed big garages, and that's also ESTP, and yeah, as you can gather a lot. Also, I've a lot of stuff myself. Sometimes also, typically, I find it difficult to do away things, and we want to test everything, to try it out, to experience things. So a good example is at one moment I had 3 singles. Well, most people don't have their own boat, and they use a single from the boathouse, from the club. I had 3, and they were all like top class. If you look at the World Championships, you see 2 brands, and I had both of them, and third one, which was looking beautiful. And why did I have 3 and didn't sell any in the beginning? Because I liked them all, and it's I think STPs, they have the right tool for every job, and they don't use these multifunction tools. They want to have the perfect tool. That's the NI aspect, I think. And I also had basically a boat, a single for a bit rough water. I had one for smooth water and things like that. So it's we gather a lot, and also connections. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, I almost have 1,000 connections, and we like to meet people, and that's also true for the ESFPs in my life. And it's yeah, that's like also gathering. It's you gather connections in that case. And in my business life as a marketing manager, that's really useful. I'm thinking if there are more gathering things. Nothing pops into my mind now, but yeah, good question. Yeah.
Yeah, SE typically manifest in gathering when they're looking for new experiences or novel experiences to stimulate them, because they might get bored of the same thing over and over again. So they might seek some sort of variety, whether it's, walking a new path or taking a new scenic route or doing something that stimulates their SE. Another way that SE can show up is last minute impulses. So it's like, I really feel like going to that beach on the other side of town, or I really feel like going to Target right now, or I really feel
That's
like...
to me SEFI. Yeah.
Yeah,
For me, the gathering is more to feed my TI model, and I see the same with ISTPs. Well,
interesting.
ESFPs, they gather more the experiences. So they are more the adventurers, the one with YouTube channels, traveling the world and showing what they see and talking to different people. That's to me a differentiation between SEFI and SETI. Yeah.
Fascinating. And so, do you think The Rock is an ESTP?
I don't know the rock.
I don't know The Rock. Like,
But I think a lot of ESTPs and also ISTPs are not so much into fictional characters. I was introduced by it by MBTI because I look at yeah, I just watch YouTube videos every day, and then you see all the personality types, and yeah, the intuitives, they like all these fictional characters. So um, I named my boat Berserker because that's the fictional character for extroverted sensing, and that's it's also with the text basically heads on, which is very extroverted sensing, and in rowing also you just go full blast in the start, and you don't think about how long the race, you just go full blast, very SE. So that's one fictional character element in my life, but who's the rock? I don't know.
I know who he is, but I've never seen him beyond his acting career and stuff he's done there. What's the minimum viable SE needed to turn a situation from boring to interesting for you?
Yeah, you have to see it as we just need some stimulus, and it can be of the mind, it can be of the body. But something needs to happen. Status quo is not a cup of tea. So yeah, for me, really, meetings in the office, if there's a good discussion, it's okay. But most meetings are just a presentation or something, and it's really tough for me to keep my attention span for a long time. And I had the same when I went to university. I did most things by self study because I could not follow the lectures. That's not the way I could learn. So also in you can see an ESTP just walking away in a conversation, and because if the conversation leads to nowhere and they find it boring, then they quit the conversation. Can be rude. So I try not to do that. But that's maybe my FE, tertiary FE. But it's not so easy to answer this question. We just need a stimulus. That's it. But, can have so many aspects that I can talk for hours about it.
Cool. And so, the best place you visited?
FI question, so difficult to answer. I can enjoy something massively and then completely forget it by now. So yeah, it's one thing I really enjoyed. It doesn't have to be the scenery. It's really the intensity of the experience again. You know, it's the SE element. And 2 years ago, I went to Club La Santa at Lanzarote. It's a triathlon hotel. And I went to with two rowing buddies I know already for 25 years. We were in the time I was in the national team, we rowed together. One of them was the INFJ I was talking about earlier. And you can take their menu of like 30 activities a day, from mountain biking to swimming or boxing lessons or athletics, boot camp, everything. It's just for SE DOMs. It's heaven. And we would bike there together, which was basically satisfying our SE. But I also had really good conversation because the one of the others was an ESTP, and he's my age, so we also developed basically his lower functions. And then the INFJ, I felt we connected a lot better than like 25 years ago. We had really deep discussions, sometimes talking for 2 or 3 hours just in the sun with the beer or a cappuccino, and I enjoyed that massively. And then also the kids were there at family. The INFJ has an ESTP son who is now in the national team ice skating. So yeah, that we connected also really well. You know, that's of course I understood him, and he's not going well at school, and I understand why. But yeah,
Hmm.
that was a nice place, and not because it was so beautiful, but because the experience was so beautiful. It was
Yeah.
exciting. It was the conversation were good. Everything. The food was good. Just yeah, yeah.
Really, really awesome. And so, what do you think of NPs?
That's a very big box and piece, and because INFPs have been running away from me most of my life. I just had to be there, and I don't know whether I triggered them or offended them or whatever, without having the intention to be nasty or to be a moron. But that's typically how they see me, and that's probably because of my SETI, which rubs them. And the interesting part is that because of MBTI now, INFPs don't run away from me anymore, and even with some I've a good connection. So that's for me like a major challenge to. I want to win, and I want to. I don't want to be scary or intimidating or dominant to them. So I tone down my SE a lot. I don't make too harsh TI comments. I think about the impact of on their feelings of my words, things like that. So that's about INFPs. ENFPs is a bit easier for me. With ENTPs, I have very good relationships. I lived together with a student when I was going to the University of Technology, and he was an ENTP, still a good friend. That's how I got exposed to a lot of NE on a daily basis. And in the beginning, you think the guy's not practical and has all these stupid ideas where he never acts upon. But then, yeah, at one moment you start to understand each other, and you have the same mid function. So that's basically where you have the connection, and then you have to get used to the SENE connection. Also at work, I always worked with ENTPs. Most of them were traders. One of them was my boss for over 10 years. So, and my son is an ENTP, so I really like them. And now I also understand NE, and I have a kind of game that sometimes when I'm with ENTPs, you have these pinball machines, and when you start, you have to basically launch the ball. That's how I want to try to launch the NE process, and then they go like the pinball machine with their NE tangents, and I just find it funny to listen. They bounce all over the place. And, to me, the fun thing is to initiate it. So and I can also participate in it, and that's. I'm a believer. That's my TI subjective model, but I'm a believer that where typically the INFPs say that you use all functions and that we have everything. I disagree with them, and I think we compensate by using our strong functions in our main function stack. And I think I simulate NE with SETI. So I figure out basically connections, and I'm very quick with my SE to do it in the moment. And it takes me energy. While NE DOMs, they don't need energy to make all these connections. It goes automatically. It's their nature. But I can participate in an NE discussion, and even make ENTPs excited about the discussion. So that's for me then a win. I think, oh, wow, I can blend in this environment and be with two or three NTPs, and we can have fun. And they think I'm one of them while I'm just trying to speak their language.
That's awesome. You're able
Yeah.
to kind of fit in your own way.
And at work, the ENTPs, they provide me basically input because they are like brainstormers. They generate idea after idea after idea. And out of 100 or 1,000 ideas, I'm the guy who thinks, hey, that idea might work. And I will pick this single idea and I will execute on it. So that's where we can combine our strengths, where basically the STPs at the desk act upon the ideas of the NTPs. And so I like to have both in the team.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Sometimes the SENI user during a brainstorming session will go like, that is the best idea, that one. And then
Yeah, I can recognize a good idea, and then it's not suddenly this hypothetical balloon anymore, but it's something I can act upon. And yeah, I think most STPs look for practical use. So that's why if you don't have a lot of experience with NTPs as an STP, you might think, oh, come on, these are all crazy, and I'm wasting my time in this discussion. But you have to see it from an angle that they just like to have these theories, and it doesn't have to be practical. And sometimes there can be a good practical idea just in it. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense, makes sense. And so, are you looking for other supplemental personality systems like the Enneagram, instinctual variants? Do you know yours? Yeah.
I think I'm a S6SO. It didn't go really deep into that. Enneagram makes a lot of sense to me, and I've quite many books on the subject, because when I was basically expanding my whole framework on MBTI and on personality types and cognitive functions, there were things where sometimes within a personality type the differences were too large for me to explain. I just didn't get it. It didn't make sense. And Enneagram is to me the tool to make sense out of that, because an ESTP 8 acts very differently than an ESTP 5. And as as soon as I noticed that, then I got more enthusiastic about Enneagram. And now, yeah, I do apply also Enneagram. I say apply because I'm a practical user. I'm not into certificates, diplomas, or into these kind of things. It's for me, it's just interest to apply and to understand also. Yeah, those two things.
Mhm.
Those are my main drivers. And I
Absolutely.
think they're very complementary. I don't see them as separate systems. Yeah. It's yeah. For example, the ENFJs I get along with really well, and I really love to work with in the office because they're so good with people. Are typically two-wing trees. That's what I noticed. It's like a pattern. So, well, there might be other types, other Enneagram types I don't like, and yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And when I went to the World Championships in an 8, most of the guys were STPs with an 8 or an 8 wing. So that's also fascinating. Get a lot
Yeah.
of ESTP 8 wing 7s.
Uh-huh.
And also 6 out of 8 were born in May. That cannot be a coincidence, you know. So there is also something. That's yeah,
Interesting.
stubborn Tauruses. Yeah, very determined.
You'll see ESTPs. The most common Enneagram types are the 7 and the 8. And there is quite a bit of difference between those subtypes of ESTPs. And you can also be an ESTP with a different Enneagram type than those two as well. So that it's not limited to those two. And but it really does show the flavors pretty well.
But
Um,
an ESTP Enneagram 4 is not somebody you will quickly meet, for example.
um, what are YouTube podcast rabbit holes have you been digging into other than typology? Recommend any channels, podcasts for rowing engineering?
Yeah, I need to know what somebody really wants to learn, because this year I jumped into a rabbit hole of Mercedes diesel engines because I was working on a marine diesel engine for a boat. And that was yeah, I got it in the garage. Was like let me calculate, 600 pounds, so super heavy. I bought it and I didn't even know how to get it off the trailer, but that's how I operate. You know, I start something and I figure it out, and I will fix it on the go. And in the end, yeah, I saw myself already for decades as an expert of four-stroke engines, but all gasoline engines, and I also want to learn about diesel. And I saw this as an opportunity to first fix an engine and second learn about diesel engines. So I just watched so many videos about it. I look for the subject, and then I can quickly recognize if it's an expert or not, and you can just move on. It's not a lecture, so if it's not interesting, I go to the next video. And So that was one rabbit hole I went into this year, and I have a ton of hobbies. So if you see it very much with the TI DOMs, if they see something interesting, they can Google the entire night. But I have an element of that, and yeah.
And so, what helps you identify as a Jungian sensing dominant type?
Jungian sensing dominant type. Yeah, it's so obvious if you look at the how action oriented I am, the energy I have, also the energy I radiate. Typically, people cannot see that much at the screen, but in the office they feel my presence. You know, if I walk into a room, people notice it. It's to some, it's when they have low low extrovert sensing, they find it sometimes intimidating. Well, I think I'm a friendly guy, and I have no intention to be intimidating, but that's just because of my energy and my self-confidence, and that's what you see with a lot of SE DOMs. And what else? Yeah, also the that I don't get exhausted of. I already when I was in my 20s, I could go chopping woods with my brothers. And at that time we were using axes. Now I have 2 chainsaws as well. But I could just start early in the morning and chop the whole day without getting exhausted. And my ESTP brother and my ISFJ brother, they especially ISFJ, he would be completely wrecked after 2 hours and not recover. And my ISTP brother would take a power nap on a stretcher or just chill to recover, and he would recover quicker. But I could just go on. I didn't even need breaks. And the same with training for rowing. I'm now in my 50s, and the last race in the single was 2 weeks ago. I beat all the younger guys. We were with 29, and the youngest category was 27 to 35 years. So they're 25 years younger, and some of them have like 30 pounds more of muscle. But yeah, I just beat them because I have so much energy that I can still train every day and push myself to the limit without getting exhausted. And I'm doing the job 3 people used to do in the past, full-time managers, So, and I still train next to it, and I have social activities. I watch YouTube videos. So it's just the intensity of things thrown at me the whole day. Physical exercise, data, information, what I see for most people would be completely exhausting. So that's to me clear evidence that I'm an SE dom. See the same with my 84-year-old mom. She still goes strong, and it's just incredible what she does in a day. She drives the whole country, around the whole country in a car still, and she drives like a maniac, like almost every SE dom. My
Yeah.
18-year-old kid, and she's 84, and yeah, she's not that good anymore. So she doesn't know her limits anymore. So the car is full with bumps. But she
Yeah.
also she almost mentally died during the lockdown because she has to see her friends. She has to go out, all these kind of things. That's SE dom. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. There are some SC DOMs who just have endless energy, like an endless wall of energy.
I'm like that. Yeah. Duracell Benny.
Hey Joyce. Hey Baaf. I would like to ask about how your TI helps you when you play cards. Can you remember which cards are played? How you play cards to gamble? Can you recognize a tell?
One of the things I really like is poker, and to me the TI helps because I quickly calculate basically the odds, and in poker what the yeah what the possibilities are with the cards, and the memory for cards, I think SI DOMs would be better in that, but an ICJ would never play poker. So at least the ones I know, they're not interested in it. And I go on a tangent now, but I think FE in poker also helps to read the others, and then SE sees patterns, so you see when somebody probably has a good card or not, and things like that. So I think a lot of poker players are beta quadra, because I also saw other beta quadra types being good in poker. But, the TI helps, yeah.
Cool. And so, have you ever worried about possibly making a mistake? And how do you feel if you happen to make a mistake? Have you dwelled on any mistakes longer than a moment?
This is a really great question, and gives us the opportunity basically to explain more about the ESTP type. Um, I had a boss who said failure is no option, and I really didn't like that comment because let's go back to the kid learning how to ride the bike. Is the mistake if you fall off your bike? Is the mistake if you hit the gate with your bike? No, it's to me that's just learning. So I'm not afraid from mistakes. I think if you're afraid from mistakes, it just hampers your growth. So I encourage also not to make mistakes, but I encourage my co-workers and my kids to do things, to try it out, and then not to be afraid for mistakes. And to me, that's the right mindset to learn things, to be relatively zen in life. And if I make a mistake, then I acknowledge it and try to learn from it. That's how I. Good question. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
with a lot of ESTPs, especially because they tend to be on the optimistic side. They when there's a mistake, they tend to bounce back a little quickly because SE's like, okay, you make a
Yeah.
mistake, just recalibrate, readjust yourself, and then try again.
And also,
So
it doesn't beat us down. As if we can make it can go wrong like 10 times, and we still, if we believe that we can be successful in it, we will not give up. And that's also why I'm still a trader, because otherwise, the trader is like professional sports, and you cannot just start the sport and be a star at day one. You will make all the mistakes in the beginning, and with trading, that means you lose money. And that if you give up after losing money for 5 times, then that's your end of your career as a trader. But even after big losses, I always recovered and then try to forget it and learn from it. It's so yeah.
yeah, it's an amazing growth mindset that maybe the other types could learn from.
Yeah,
Just
I have to say I have a grown mindset and also an abundance mindset, because many times you get questions. And for example, in the office we had an INFJ, and she needed a bit more privacy because too many sensory input just exhausted her, and too much sensory input. So I said, yeah, it would be good to have a plant next to her. And then somebody else said, yeah, why don't you give your plant to her? And I thought, what a scarcity mindset. We just request for an additional plant. It's a simple example, but that's how I always think. Why one or the other. I also don't like questions where they say if you would have to choose to chop off your hand or lose your 25 IQ points. I saw that in another Q&A. That's not the question for me, because yeah, that's yeah. I have an abundance mindset. Uh,
yeah, the resilience and the grit is strong with this one. And so, which cognitive function would you like to understand better? What would you like to experience a simulation of for a day or so?
without the intention to sound cocky, I think I understand functions quite well, but I want to become better in NI, because I think it adds so much value to an ESTP. If you already look at the ISTPs, we have a bit stronger NI, how good they are with it, for example, in trading, and then these kind of NI concepts. And yeah, that's my growth goal basically. Yeah.
Cool. And so, SE is a cognitive perceiving function and is more than simple sensing, but do you give priority to any one of your senses?
Yeah, it's because we can process so much data, I think, and maybe also because my abundance mindset. I like to combine all the senses, and then so that rowing and cruise for me is a good example. You feel the flow of the boat, you feel the weather, I feel what my crewmates are doing behind me. I have very good senses to feel really what the individual contributions are in the boat, and if they're going along with the rhythm or if they're disturbing something. And then also the flow of the rhythm. So you have a lot of different senses then activated, but I can also massively enjoy a dinner with good friends, and then you have taste, you have sound, you see things. So not easy for me to single out one sensing function. Yeah, we're very much in touch with our body, but um, as an 8-wing 7, I ignore pain and a lot of other things. So that's where you filter what you sense. It's yeah, this is something I need to think about. This will still keep me thinking after the interview. I like the question. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, what was the personal difficulty through your life in communicating with people that don't value your SE-DOM ways?
Yeah, that they see the intensity basically of our speech sometimes as dominating or intimidating. You have to see it as energy, and we have this energy, so that's why it's getting out. And that's why I think communicating with INFPs was so difficult for me in the past, because my normal volume button is to them at 9. Well, to me, it's just normal at 2 or 3. That's how I perceive it myself, but that's not how they receive it. So, um, yeah, as also a lot of SI users are disturbed by SE DOMs. It's too much to them, and they take too much risk. Then NI DOMs find this too impulsive. Well, I see it as action oriented, but yeah, if you really want to think if it's the right thing to do and if it's the right timing, then I can see why they see us as impulsive. It's those things in communication you notice, and with all the types, the different types, that we prioritize different things, we value different things, and as soon as you understand it, you can adjust your behavior. And yeah, but say if you look at me authentically, then I think the FI DOMs, the INFPs have the most difficulties with my personality and my SE. ISFPs, they share the SE, so they are okay with it, but they've issue with my TI. So yeah.
Cool stuff. Yeah. I do think, yeah, NI DOMs sometimes see SE DOMs as impulsive. And I think depending on the SE DOM, maybe like for some of them, most people find them impulsive too. So here's an example for audience comprehension. I had this ESTP friend once. Do you know that jelly bean game where it's a jelly bean roulette, whether like you might have a good jelly bean flavor or a really bad jelly bean flavor? There's rotten egg, skunk, and there's also licorice. So it's you don't know what you're gonna get. And so I had an ESTP friend take the whole package and then down all the jelly beans, and that was like the most shocking time and impulsive time that I've witnessed.
I know plenty of ESTPs who also would finish their beer in a second. They just would take it in at once. And yeah, we like challenges. We like to test the limit. So it makes sense. You have to see it from that perspective. How fast can we finish this? Yeah, it can be dangerous to challenge an ESTP. If you tell an ESTP you don't dare to swallow this animal, he might do it and
Yes.
poison himself. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what happened with the jelly beans. Someone challenged him, and he's like, "I'm
yeah,
gonna down all of these."
yeah.
And so,
It's also funny. I think you should be able to laugh at your own type and at yourself. Yeah, it's when I see young ESTPs, yeah, I recognize a lot of myself, and it can be really funny
yeah, it is.
as long as they don't put their life in too much danger. But typically, they have enough TI to figure out things and to keep some control. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, what's your sleep wake up routine if you have one?
If I want to row early in the morning, I wake up at or routine. Or hold on. Yeah, that's really a routine. It's I go to the kitchen, I get the yogurt, throw some cereals in it, and I make tea for myself and my wife, and that's then I watch CNBC to get the latest market info, and I watch the charts at my computer to see what the markets did overnight in Asia. I'm a trader also, and yeah, you want to have the data. That's SE gathering, and then basically I start my day, and yeah, that can be sports, it can be work, it can be uh, another activity. That's yeah, it's not that scripted, but you get patterns. I think if you have a job, a full-time job, you quickly get into patterns. You cannot just do something different every day if you have a normal job. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes
But as a
sense.
rower, because when I was basically a teenager, that's maybe good to mention. I could, at one moment, my dad picked me up at my friend's house at 2 a.m. just at a normal week where I had to go to school, attend school every day early in the morning. And this was at Wednesday, and it was the third day in a row where I was at my friend at 2 p.m. And already the day before, my parents told me that I should not come home too late because I had to school the next day. And then my dad picked me up. So that's also, yeah, you're in the moment, you have fun. We were playing Risk and smoking cigarettes, which my parents didn't smoke. I'm not even sure if at that time they knew I was smoking. And yeah, we're having a good time. So not worried for the next day. And I did even early morning the papers I was distributing. So I was just sleeping like 3 hours those days for 3 days in a row. Yeah. So yeah, that's we are not that much into patterns or routines like, for example, the ISTJs typically have. But I have routines. I got more routines as an athlete because if you want to perform, your TI figures out that if you sleep only 3 hours in a night, it's not good for recovery. So then you have TI reasons to sleep more and to go to bed earlier and not to smoke and all these kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Has
TI.
nothing to do with how you feel. I stopped smoke from one day to the other. So and my ISTP friend did the same. So if we have a TI reason, we act upon it with our SE, and there were no feelings attached to it that we complained or that we felt bad or all these kind of things. No, we just did it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, are you able to have an abundance mindset when it comes to time as well?
Yeah, I always think I can do more than I can really do in a day. But then I don't have this TE, say, drive that has to be finished at a specific time. So if I have deadlines, I always wait until the last minute and then I do it. And I finish within the deadline, but I don't start very early. And yeah, that's my mindset when it comes to time is that I can do a lot. And typically, I think I can do more than it's what is possible in a day. Yeah.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff. And so, has an INFP ever explained to you why they may be scared of you? Maybe you made the wrong impression. Maybe they made the.
It's maybe not really scared, but it's just like somebody is. The energy is just a lot. And I think too, because INTPs also perceive my energy sometimes as dominant. That's the word they use. I think it's just that it's like this kid in the street with this sound blaster, at the shoulder, making a lot of noise you don't appreciate. And to me, in this case, it's not noise but energy. And then the TI also offends the FI because I give my arguments and reasons, but that might not be aligned with their values or feelings, and that can make them feel really bad because of what I say. But I don't have any feeling attached to it. For me, it's a reason or argument to make a point. So that typically, yeah, it's just like two different languages which
Mm,
don't have a lot in common. That's how I see it because these days, yeah, they don't seem to run away, and some of them even seem to like me. So you
mm.
you have to value basically their FI and then take into account how you come across.
Yeah. If someone comes across as intimidating, that might also be an Enneagram thing too, because Enneagram type 8,
Yeah, that's right.
they're known
I
for coming off as intimidating.
also 8.7, so I'm a go-getter, and then SE can come across as impatient, and I just want to succeed, and with the team I want to perform, and that's my main drive. And yeah, then you push because you want to go faster, and yeah, for some people, my energy is just too high. They want to go at a slower pace or think about it instead of taking action. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good encapsulation of ESTP is Sonic the Hedgehog. His catcher phrase is "gotta go fast," and like most of the time he's chilling, relaxing, but when action comes along, he's all for the action, like going that way. So
Yeah.
sometimes like SE DOMs, they can be chill until something actually arrives that puts them into drive too. So
Yeah.
there's
I'm
that.
pretty chill now, already for 2 hours. So.
Yeah, you're really chill right now.
Of course, it's end of day, but yeah, it's the discussion that gives me energy, and that's why I'm interested. And yeah,
Cool.
it's still energizing, but I'm not very active. I'm just sitting in my home office and in front of a computer. But yeah, you make it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the last question for tonight or this morning. And so how's it now that you have the vocabulary to explain the cognitive functions used by you and the people in your life compared to when you didn't?
Yeah, things just make a lot more sense. Where in the past I might have been disturbed by somebody else, or might not get something what somebody was saying or doing. These days, it's a lot easier to understand others and to make myself understood as well. So that's I think how I see it now. Yeah, and when I didn't, yeah, there were things which were going naturally well. As I said, when I was interviewing talent for jobs, and now it's basically there's a kind of system behind it, or at least understanding behind it, why it works well. And I will probably make less mistakes when I'm interviewing people. So, or need less time. Sometimes I figure out in 5 minutes already what kind of person is sitting opposite of me, and I know if the candidate will be good or not, and then we just have to finish the hour. But yeah, it typically turns out to be right if I think something like that.
Yeah. I wonder if SE gets a lot of pride from figuring something out really quickly. It's like SE's like, I get an immediate read of it in 5 minutes. Yeah. I don't know if there's like some good feeling that comes out of that.
There is a dopamine shot if we solve something, and it can be an STP solving a technical problem, it can be an ESFP trying to get a visa in a bureaucratic environment and just knocking at the door of the embassy several days until they get the visa. It's that's the dopamine shot we get when we are successful. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
By
That's
being
awesome.
persistent, by taking action, and not giving up. Yeah.
Mm.
I watched the video yesterday. Master Milo, I think I'm 99% sure he's an ESTP. He is working on tanks, really these World War II tanks, and he is encountering technical issues every day, and he has to make his own tools to work on these tanks. He has to figure out what problems are, and it's so much fun for me to watch. And if you see the smile at his face every time he fixes a problem, that's fun. Yeah. So that's where you see that he gets a boost from it. And sometimes he's just trying to fix one problem and he's working on it a full day. Master Milo, watch him at YouTube. It's fun. If you want to watch the ESTP in action, it's in Dutch, but you will understand what's going on because the video quality is really good.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Taco, for coming out today and showing us your physical mastery over your crafts or your physical endeavors. And yeah, you're pushing your body to the limit in the best way possible and getting those gold medals and really challenging yourself and taking risks and living life and being a
Living life to
go-getter.
the fullest, the SE way. Yeah. Well, thanks for the invite. I really enjoyed it, and also thanks for the crowd for all the questions. It was a lot of fun to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really nice to see how when something doesn't go your way, you just try again. So there's a huge trial and error element, but
Oh yes. Yeah.
you go again when it doesn't work. And that's something that people can learn from. Because some people, when something negative comes their way, they just give up. They're like, I can't do this anymore. I give up. But you have this amazing mentality where you're like, resilience, grit, gotta keep trying.
And we
And
don't
that's
give up, but we might conclude with our TI that something is not going to work. It doesn't feel like giving up. It's more like that you think, okay, this is not working.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a talent of persistence, unless your TI notices something won't work.
I like that persistence. That's very SE. Yeah,
Yeah. And so thank you everyone for asking very bomb and excellent questions. And thank you, Taco, for answering them and being so chill tonight. And yeah.
my pleasure. It was fun.
We'll see you all in the next live.